The story opens with a warning that the true consequences of unearthing a hidden ruin were beyond anyone's imagination. As the excavation disturbed a long-forgotten seal, it set free a disaster so great that it threatened the survival of all mankind. A sinister crimson fog swept swiftly through each city, engulfing the streets as those trapped inside either descended into insanity or fell dead where they stood, leaving the roads scattered with unmoving corpses. Unlike humans, most other creatures underwent horrifying changes, morphing into bizarre and fearsome forms. These transformations granted them unusual and powerful abilities, turning them into formidable monsters. Within the shadowy remains, the youth stood firm, his eyes scanning the shattered landscape with unwavering resolve as he contemplated the unpredictable days ahead beyond the debris. Without warning, a military plane launched a missile that detonated with a thunderous blast, spreading destruction and turmoil throughout the city. A girl, clearly anxious, pressed her hands tightly together. Her voice shook with worry as she begged the person leaving to assure her they would come back unharmed. Amid the ruins and swirling smoke, the main character remained firm, his voice ringing out in desperation as he searched for, all while dangerous creatures closed in on him with hostile intent. Without warning, massive creatures with fiery red eyes burst forth from the churning smoke, their furious growls echoing through the shattered remains and casting a menacing shadow over the scene. In the pitch-black surroundings, the boy frantically looked around for, his trembling voice revealing how scared and anxious he was becoming. The savage creature, radiating a crimson aura, launched a relentless attack against the horde of monsters. Its horrified prey shrieked in pain as they were ruthlessly defeated. The main character lowered his head, his eyes burning with determination, and released a powerful wave of dark energy. At the same time, his arm shifted shape, turning into a monstrous claw that glowed with a bright red light. Among the broken remains of the battlefield, the wounded hero remained firm, red energy sparking fiercely around his altered arm while he revealed the true force of his abilities. With a cold and frightening energy, the main character called out Sn's name, his threatening presence heightened by dark shadows swirling around him and the eerie glow of his red eyes. The injured youth pushed forward through the rubble-littered remains, leaving a trail of blood behind him. His strength fading, he tried to call for, his voice shaky and filled with urgency as he fought to stay on his feet. A dark, indistinct shape moved with a threatening air toward the forgotten doll, its presence filling the quiet space with a sense of foreboding. The young man knelt next to the unconscious girl, his monstrous arm smeared with blood, and cried out her name in despair, his voice filled with desperation. Just as the giant, crimson claw surged forward to strike the frightened, pig-faced being, a human hand appeared out of nowhere, firmly halting the vicious assault and making the scene even more suspenseful. Grief weighed heavily on the young man's features as a thin stream of blood ran from his eye. He murmured Sn's name softly, his sorrow wrapped in quiet, unspoken pain. Amid the wreckage of the broken city, the main character dropped to his knees, surrounded by silence. Overwhelmed by hopelessness, he shouted into the emptiness, his words bouncing off the deserted ruins while he frantically looked for a person who had already vanished. 3 days before, a strange red mist started to drift through several areas, prompting officials to encourage everyone to stay composed. They recommended that people should stay indoors and only go outside if absolutely necessary. Within the shadowy room, the air grew heavier with tension as the young man remained alert, his ears straining for the slightest hint of threat. Meanwhile, the anxious girl's eyes darted nervously to each corner, her worry growing with every shifting shadow. Armed soldiers pressed aggressively down the tense city street, their presence commanding attention. One soldier shouted sharply, instructing all bystanders to retreat right away. Nearby, another soldier, his tone edged with skepticism, cautioned the crowd against believing anything the politicians claimed. The main character, along with the other startled civilians, stood paralyzed, caught between fear and confusion. Within the cramped, uneasy car, a scared young girl admitted her worries about the worsening situation, wondering aloud whether it could truly be called a natural disaster when soldiers had arrived. Her brother responded softly, offering comfort by reminding her that their family was together and secure. In the midst of the threatening, a cautious young man studied the intense force of the scarlet fog, his mind racing with uncertainty. Nearby, another individual, visibly unsettled, struggled to comprehend the frightening spectacle before them. Without warning, an enormous hammer crashed onto the ground, unleashing a powerful blast that erupted across the area and sent ripples of energy surging outward. Without warning, a gigantic shape loomed in front of the windshield, obscuring everything beyond. The main character, startled by the sight, glanced over at the driver with a bewildered look. Both men sat motionless, stunned and unable to react for a brief moment. Inside the vehicle, danger rushed toward them, prompting the main character to urgently instruct the girl to duck. Fear her, and she screamed as panic consumed them both. Despite the chaos, he positioned himself to protect her, determined to keep her safe. Without warning, a car crashes through the building's wall, scattering broken pieces and rubble throughout the room as pandemonium breaks out. The young man, his hands stained with blood and fear etched across his face, desperately searched for his parents, his voice trembling as he pleaded to know if they were safe. Overcome by panic and desperation, the wounded boy realized his leg was trapped and anxiously tried to understand the situation, while his companions hurried to free him from the damaged vehicle. Without warning, a brilliant light engulfed the group, causing them to look up in fear. The main character, clearly startled, urgently questioned the situation, desperate to understand what was going on. A gigantic creature suddenly stormed into the city, leaving the main character stunned and questioning the shocking scene. Nearby, a frightened boy pleaded with the crowd to escape, shouting that a second monster was close, which sent the people into a frenzy of panic. A man, injured and frantic, hastily urged everyone to leave the vehicle, his tone shaking with fear as a nearby threat grew more imminent. Without warning, cars crashed violently, breaking apart the road and causing vehicles to spin out of control, throwing the entire area into a state of confusion and chaos. Surrounded by wrecked vehicles and the eerie light of scattered debris, a resolute youth led a nervous girl across the shattered ground, their minds set on finding a way out of the peril that pressed in from all sides. In the middle of the turmoil, the anxious brother urged his sister to escape and ignore any concern for their safety. Despite her fear, the girl, eyes filled with tears, refused to abandon him and was resolved to help him out. Their desperate pleas filled the air, while he fought to force open the battered car door. While turmoil broke out by the smashed vehicle, a frightened girl shouted for assistance, her pleas urgent and fearful as the vicious beast kept attacking. Meanwhile, a resolute young man watched the dangerous scene, his attention sharp and steady. Despite her severe wounds, the girl remained resolute, her voice filled with urgency as she pleaded with the stunned young man to flee and look after like a brother would. As she spoke, the man, his face set in a somber expression, kept her close, shielding her with his blood-stained arms. Without warning, an immense surge of energy crashed from above, sending the frightened girl and the startled main character scrambling for shelter, while disorder broke out all around them. A deafening roar shattered the silence as the wild creature burst out from beneath the debris, its menacing red eyes glowing fiercely while it charged into sight. While the boy guided their frantic flight from the enraged, red-eyed creature, the terrified girl called out for her parents, her fearful voice shaking. A terrifying creature emerged from the thick smoke, sending fear through everyone. The frightened boy quickly grabbed the scared girl, guiding her away from danger, while he motioned for his parents to escape as well. Without warning, an enraged shriek rang out across the city, signaling the arrival of a gigantic winged creature. The beast soared above the skyline and began its ferocious assault, leaving a trail of ruin among the high-rise buildings as panic spread below. While fear and hopelessness swept through the city, the main character desperately searched for. Nearby, a frightened man shouted warnings that people were going mad. Together with a resolute girl, they all hurried toward the flames and turmoil consuming the city. The resolute young man rushed ahead, his voice ringing out with urgent questions as he faced the mysterious danger. Behind him, a concerned girl quickly followed, her need to understand the situation driving her to keep up. Within the churning shadows, a monstrous figure with blazing red eyes attacked with savage intensity, its sharp teeth exposed in a threatening snarl, while its frightened victim scrambled desperately to break free. While the menacing creature stalked nearby, the main character anxiously positioned himself to protect the frightened girl, signaling for her to remain quiet in hopes of keeping them both safely concealed. Beneath a sky filled with restless, churning clouds, the main character surveys the area with sharp focus, taking in every detail as he tries to understand what is happening nearby. Within the dimly lit room, a charged atmosphere settled as an aggressive creature stared down a determined young man, each silently bracing for the clash that was about to erupt. Once the attack was over, the weary young man breathed a sigh of relief and let his companion know, with visible exhaustion, that their followers had at last departed, bringing a sense of calm to their tense ordeal. Without warning, the frightened girl grabbed her head, overwhelmed by fear, while a desperate scream escaped her lips. Crimson marks appeared and rapidly spread over her face, a clear sign that an uncontrollable force was beginning to possess her. Noticing the troubled look on his sister's face, her brother's concern grew as he questioned her about what was bothering her. She quietly admitted to feeling unwell, and a sense of unease settled over them, intensifying the tension in the already disorderly environment. The protagonist's heart raced as he caught a glimpse of a troubled expression gazing at him through the shattered glass. Confusion and worry flooded his mind while he held the terrified girl close, shielding her from whatever danger might be near. The boy dropped to his knees next to the terrified girl, shielding her from the thick red mist swirling around them. Worry filled his mind as he wondered if breathing in so much of the strange fog was making her feel this way. Sensing danger, the young man hurriedly told the scared girl to protect her mouth and nose, all while he positioned himself between her and the threatening red smoke. A burst of intense red energy exploded across the scene as the beast gave a desperate order, telling the main character to stay still and summon his strength. The beast insisted that only by unleashing this power could victory be achieved. Meanwhile, the main character crouched low, his body racked with pain, fighting to push past his agony and obey the command. The girl's eyes widened with concern as she watched her brother struggle with his injuries and his temper. Fear tightening her voice, she pleaded for him to calm down, but he quickly brushed off her worries. Even though pain and frustration flickered across his face, he tried to convince her that everything was under control, urging her to trust him while battling his own inner chaos. Without warning, a fearsome creature with luminous eyes and sharp, uneven spikes stepped out of the crimson fog, its very appearance exuding an intense sense of menace. Surrounded by debris, the frightened girl begged her brother to halt, her shaky voice revealing how much his behavior scared her while the monstrous creature drew nearer. Without warning, the hulking creature locked its blazing, crimson eyes on the group, sending fear through the girl. In her panic, she urgently warned her friends that the beast had noticed them. With the terrifying creature charging behind them, the boy, his words quivering in fear, frantically pleaded for the girl to escape while he tugged her away from harm's path. In the midst of the confusion, the resolute main character guided the terrified girl through the ruined supermarket, both of them barely avoiding collapsing shelves and flying rubble as they raced to escape the looming threat. Without warning, a gigantic creature with wings revealed itself overhead, letting out a thunderous roar that made the main character jump back in fright. In the midst of the smoky ruins, a menacing creature drew nearer, causing the worried girl to hold tightly to her brother. Fearful of what was coming, she looked to him for guidance, realizing that a new danger was already on its way. Noticing how frightened the girl was, the young man wrapped his arms around her in a comforting hug, softly letting her know she had nothing to worry about since he would keep her safe. The menacing creature faced its solitary challenger and let out a thunderous roar, making its power known. Despite the intimidating display, the person below remained steadfast, showing no sign of backing down in the presence of danger. In the midst of swirling energy and utter chaos, the monstrous creature erupted into a violent frenzy, its wild roars reverberating throughout the wreckage. Caught in an overwhelming wave of despair, the main character tightly held the terrified girl, determination etched on his face as he wondered if this moment would mark their last stand. Driven by urgency, the man urged a return, yet his uncertain movements revealed there was an unseen threat. Resolutely, he guided the uneasy girl closer to the shadowy entrance. The main character, his resolve clear, argued that stepping outside carried even greater peril. Nevertheless, he believed it was their sole chance for escape. Positioning himself defensively, he shielded the nervous girl from the threatening creature lurking within the shop. The young man's eyes burned with determination as he shouted, channeling all his strength into a forceful strike that revealed his unwavering resolve in each motion. The enraged creature, its eyes burning a vivid red, hurled itself forward with terrifying force. All around, the surroundings broke apart as the startled main character steeled themselves, desperately preparing to withstand the oncoming assault. The young man froze in terror, his mind reeling as panic took hold. He realized with growing dread how desperate the situation had become, just as the enraged creature lunged directly toward him. Within the store's walls, the determined main character fought with every ounce of strength, striving to hold back the hungry creature as its gaping mouth lunged mere inches from him. Fueled by intense resolve, the young man plunged his blade deep into the open jaws of the monster. As the weapon struck, a spray of blood erupted and the creature jerked back, writhing in furious pain. When the girl noticed her brother was hurt, she hurried over to him, clutching her phone tightly. Worry filled her voice as she called out to him and promised that she would get him the help he needed. As the monstrous creature charged at the group in a wild rage, the main character cried out in desperation, urging everyone to escape. Hearing this plea, the frightened girl spun around and bolted away. The frightened girl dashed across the debris-strewn room, chased closely by the ferocious creature. Meanwhile, the main character, his tone filled with concern, called out too, begging her to keep her eyes forward and not glance behind. The young man, badly hurt and in obvious pain, struggled to stay on his feet. Blood escaped his lips as he clutched his chest, the seriousness of his wound clear in every shaky movement. Standing in the doorway, the young man gripped his chest as a menacing red aura swirled around him. He fought with all his strength against the strange power, his mind racing with pain and confusion, wondering what had caused such suffering to descend upon him at that exact moment. The monstrous creature charged at the girl with ferocious intent, its fury highlighting how defenseless she was. Overwhelmed by terror, she let out a piercing scream, completely exposed before the beast's wrath. Panic surged through the main character as he crashed through the collapsing wall, his desperate shouts for echoing amid the flying debris. A wave of red energy slammed into the earth, scattering fragments in every direction, while the vigilant girl swiftly sprang aside, narrowly escaping the dangerous attack. Caught in a whirlwind of aggression, the determined youth attacked the fearsome creature without mercy. His anger was unmistakable, and he shouted desperately, insisting that the beast needed to die for him. As red energy twisted through the air, the determined main character launched a powerful attack with his pole weapon, aiming directly at the raging, monstrous creature. The beast's glowing eyes revealed a mix of anger and hopelessness as it faced the onslaught. The terrifying creature launched into a wild and violent attack, its voice booming with menacing promises of destruction, as the terrified girl screamed desperately, calling for her brother to save her. The girl held tightly to her brother while he lashed out in a violent rage, his hands stained with blood. Fear and sorrow filled her as she implored him not to give in to this savage side, her voice trembling with hope that he could change. With a sense of desperation, the troubled girl grasped tightly onto the man's chest. Her face was filled with anxiety as she insisted she was all right, her voice trembling with urgency as she begged him to cease his actions. Rain poured down in sheets as fear took hold of both the girl and the young man. Her hands shook as she pulled him away from the car, her terror clear in every movement. Urgency filled her as she tried to get him to escape, both of them desperate to get away from whatever danger loomed. As rain poured down relentlessly, a woman sat injured and desperate inside a car, her tears streaming as she looked out at the grave-faced man standing nearby. She implored him, reminding him that he was her brother, and begged him to protect her and take responsibility for her well-being. The man, his voice tinged with both sadness and warmth, gently promised the girl that he would always watch over her, regardless of where his path led. He encouraged to continue living alongside, while the pair stood side by side, exchanging a quiet moment filled with genuine care and support. Shrouded in deep darkness, the boy pleaded for his brother, his anxious and fearful voice reverberating through the emptiness. The young man, trapped in the corner with blood running down his face and fear etched in his eyes, begged the hidden presence to reconsider before doing anything reckless. His words shook with panic and desperation. A young girl, clearly shaken and anxious, searched frantically for her brother. Fear flashed in her eyes as she struggled to keep her composure, her concern for him growing with every passing moment. Relief and warmth washed over the siblings as the girl expressed regret for causing her brother any concern. Despite still appearing shaken, the boy comforted her by insisting that he was all right now. Their hearts swelled with happiness as they stood together, grateful to be reunited at last. Caught in a charged standoff, the main character, both alarmed and on guard, hurried to deny the accusations against him. At the same time, a threatening, animal-like silhouette hovered menacingly behind the anxious girl. Without warning, a terrifying creature sprang toward them, compelling the frightened boy to step protectively in front of the shocked girl, while tension and fear hung thickly around them. Without warning, the enormous creature, wild with fury, crashed through the wall, sending pieces of rubble flying and unleashing chaos throughout the area. Seething with anger and resolve, the young man shouted a harsh remark at the bird that opposed him, channeling all his energy into a powerful swing of his weapon. Fueled by unwavering resolve, the main character hurled himself toward the terrifying creature, his voice ringing out in a plea for the beast to keep its distance from his sister, as he battled with all his might to shield her from harm. Driven by unwavering resolve, the young man channels a powerful surge of energy through his sword, sending a blinding blast crashing into the gigantic stone creature and causing a violent eruption. Driven by fierce resolve, the young man shielded, urging her to stay hidden as he prepared to confront the oncoming monsters on his own. Even though pleaded for him not to face the danger alone, he remained steadfast in his decision. Realizing that the greatest danger was now targeting his group, the resolute young man decided to draw attention to himself, intending to distract the threat and lead it away from his companions. The anxious girl held tightly to her brother, her voice trembling with concern as she pleaded for him to stay, haunted by memories of times when he had lost control before. Amid swirling smoke and a tense environment, the main character kept his composure, showing a protective side. He softly placed his hand on the worried girl's head, offering her comfort and vowing that he would stay in control. However, a subtle doubt still echoed in his voice, revealing that he wasn't completely sure of his promise. Determination shone in the main character's gaze as he softly comforted the worried girl, urging her to stay and trust that he would come back for her. As he embraced her, the air was thick with both reassurance and unspoken worry. Wearing a calm smile and radiating steady confidence, the young man offered his companion comfort, assuring her through his demeanor that he would come back unharmed to keep the vow he had made. Without warning, the wall shatters apart, releasing jagged streams of menacing red energy that snake across the surface from the smoking, ragged opening. Surrounded by swirling smoke and shattered remains, the resolute youth radiated a vivid red aura. He figured that by tracking down these monsters and taking in their scarlet energy, he could grow more powerful. He also sensed that the creature he now faced held even greater energy than the ones before. Fueled by steadfast resolve, the protagonist faced the fearsome creature head-on, assuring himself that overcoming this challenge would give him the power required to safeguard his loved ones. The monstrous beast let out a rage-filled snarl, making it clear through its threatening posture and glare that it intended to end its foe's life. The man stood firm before the growling creatures, his resolve unshaken as he confronted them. He questioned if they considered him so insignificant that they refused to acknowledge him as a real threat. Driven by intense anger, the protagonist swung his sword at the fearsome creature, his determination clear as he vowed to track down and destroy each of his foes, one after another. Driven by relentless resolve, the main character gripped his bat tightly and struck the beast's head with powerful force, the resounding impact reflecting his unbreakable spirit during the heated battle. When the wild creature sprang toward him, the main character clenched his jaw in stubborn resistance. Silently, he told himself that these monsters were just animals, steeling himself to withstand their brutal attack. Fueled by intense rage, the main character unleashed a lethal assault against the terrifying creature, making it clear through his actions that he was determined to destroy it as the monster shrank back in agony. Surrounded by vibrant, crackling red energy, the main character felt an intense surge of strength. Amazed by this overwhelming sensation, a sense of awe washed over them as they realized they were experiencing true power for the first time. Smoke mingled with red light, curling over the war-torn ground as the enormous creature planted itself firmly, bracing for the fierce attack from the approaching fighter jet. A menacing, winged demon swept down from above, its presence radiating dark energy. Meanwhile, the main character remained on the ground, watchful and trying to understand why this creature had appeared just as more monsters began to assemble nearby. Overwhelmed by shock and fear, the young man stared in disbelief as red energy sparked along his arm, twisting it into an unrecognizable form. Confusion filled his mind, and he let out a desperate shout, struggling to make sense of the wild changes happening to his body. Without warning, a huge missile hurtles down toward the hero, who is standing by himself among the shattered remains. His face shows clear panic as he scrambles to respond to the danger rushing his way. Hidden behind a pile of rubble, the girl anxiously shouted her brother's name, her voice trembling with fear for his well-being. Despite his injuries and exhaustion, he caught sight of her, and summoning his remaining strength, signaled for to stay back. With fierce determination and his frighteningly transformed red arm, he made it clear he would protect her from harm, no matter the cost. Without warning, a powerful blast tore through the space between the towering buildings, sending blinding light and shattered debris flying while plunging the surroundings into utter turmoil. A helicopter circled anxiously over the devastated city, its blades slicing through the air beneath a sky stained crimson. Inside, a voice urged the team to prepare for descent and begin searching for any people who might have survived below. The man spoke with an icy command, ordering his companion to abandon the sick boy and capture the terrified girl. As she was led toward the military vehicle, a menacing atmosphere settled over the scene. The frightened girl was swiftly dragged away from danger by her nervous savior, who pressed the group to hurry, cautioning that the creatures would be back any moment. Within the crimson-hued wreckage of the city, the terrifying beast reached out with his sharp, talon-like hand toward the retreating military helicopter, his very existence exuding a sense of looming peril. Suddenly, a devastated girl emerges amidst the flames, clasping her hands to her chest as she laments in despair, calling out to her brother and questioning why he has left her in such agony. Amidst the raging flames, the white-haired girl, her voice trembling with desperation, cried out and demanded to know if had truly come to save her, reaching desperately toward the outstretched hand. Suddenly, a spiked gauntlet erupts with swirling flames, unleashing a cataclysmic surge of fiery power that scorches the air around it. Leaning heavily against the cracked wall, the wounded young man struggled to catch his breath, his exhaustion evident as he gasped for air beside the battered rifle. Suddenly, the MC clutched his head in agony, overcome by a surge of intense pain that left him visibly distressed. Determined to press on despite his injuries, the MC advanced through the battered hallway, gripping his rifle tightly as he prepared himself for the confrontation ahead. Amid the ruins of a city shrouded in red smoke and dominated by a menacing, glowing tower, the protagonist desperately recounted how he had scoured every local shelter since was taken, yet found no trace of her. Determined to find his sister in a chaotic world, the protagonist enlisted as a low-ranking soldier in the border patrol, knowing that only the army had the authority to gather information and travel freely. The imposing, battle-scarred walls of the city border outpost loom over the ruined landscape, debris and streaks of energy hinting at the ominous aftermath of a recent attack. Nervously rushing toward the stern captain waiting by the ruined structure, the young man apologized for being late to his shift, hoping his explanation would be accepted. In a burst of hostility, the irritated superior berated the rookie for being late and accused him of slacking off, while the ashamed young man apologized meekly as another soldier looked on in silence. As the sun dipped low and cast long shadows over the rocky structure, a weary worker called up to, expressing his anticipation for the arrival of the so-called big shots so they could finally end their shift, while still climbing the precarious ladder, responded with resigned acknowledgement. Half a year ago, the crimson fog erupted, devastating most cities into uninhabitable ruins overtaken by aberrations, while a towering crimson spire emerged at the heart of the destruction, forcing the remaining humans to survive only on the distant borderlands. Tense and wary, the MC glanced ahead and wondered aloud if the menacing figure was still lurking nearby. A weary soldier, his face shadowed and serious as he smoked a cigarette, expressed his resignation by stating that with the Special Response Unit already deployed, their own efforts felt futile, and he questioned what ordinary soldiers like them could possibly accomplish if even the elite could not hold the line. As debris littered the area, the relaxed captain confidently reassured his team that the Special Response Unit would never fall, while another man quickly agreed, expressing disbelief at the very idea. As lightning and rain pour down, the white-haired girl stands resolutely atop a pile of monstrous aberration corpses, her triumph reflecting the relentless battles fought along the way. Sitting solemnly atop the ruined building, the wounded survivor reflected with resignation that the crimson fog still filled him with loathing, knowing its presence awakened primal bloodlust and drove creatures to turn on one another. As the MC warily watched, he noticed the crimson fog mysteriously parting around the jagged spire amid the devastated cityscape. Suddenly, the MC, visibly alarmed, urgently warned the others that something was rapidly approaching and posed an immediate threat. Inside the ruined building, an anxious soldier urgently alerted his captain to something amiss. But the captain, visibly annoyed, dismissed the warning and insisted there was no need for alarm. As a massive, ominous surge of crimson fog advanced from the strange structure, one of the armed men, alarmed, demanded to know why it was rushing toward them, while his companion stood on guard, worry etched across his face. Suddenly, one of the men, his voice tight with alarm, alerted the captain that the Special Response Unit had arrived, as armored figures rushed urgently through the shattered street. Amid the chaos, as a wave of red energy hurled two armored figures against the wall, a panicked man urgently shouted for everyone to fall back, demanding to know what had just happened. Amid the chaos, the panicked commander urgently ordered everyone to fall back, as soldiers were violently thrown aside by the overwhelming red force. Suddenly, the man screamed in terror as he realized a massive, deadly weapon was being swung at him from behind, leaving him completely vulnerable and overwhelmed by panic. Facing the monstrous beast wreathed in red energy, the man stood his ground with unwavering resolve, declaring with determination that everything had come to an end. As panic erupted among those nearby with frantic cries to run from the approaching threat, the MC stood unflinching at the edge of the crumbling ledge, surveying the red, shadowy shapes surging upward below. With unwavering resolve, the MC launches himself off the towering structure, his determined descent marking a pivotal, intense moment. Suddenly, a massive red dragon is struck by a devastating energy blast, triggering a violent explosion that fills the scene with intense chaos. Crouched over the slain beast as blood-red energy swirled around him, the MC focused intently and announced in a calm, cold voice that this was his first kill. With unwavering determination, the MC stood his ground, his transformed arm poised for battle as the massive monster roared before him. With unwavering focus, the male protagonist unleashed his monstrous red claws to strike down the enormous dragon, counting his victory as he announced in his mind that this was the second foe defeated amid the city's ruins. With an intense surge of dominance, the monstrous clawed arm belonging to the MC crackled with red energy as it absorbed the dragon's power. Surrounded by swirling red energy and monstrous gauntlets, the MC absorbed new power and reflected confidently that he had grown a little stronger. As red energy swirled around his arms and the ground cracked beneath him, the focused young man calmly counted the approaching monsters, preparing himself for the tense battle ahead. Amidst the rubble, the young man cloaked in red stood fiercely with his demonic claw outstretched, warning everyone in a commanding tone that they had better not let him down. Suddenly, a blinding energy beam tears through the scene, hurling the shocked MC backward while a monstrous creature is engulfed in the explosive blast. Confronted by the sudden appearance of a white-haired girl wielding a rifle and exuding determination, the MC, wary and alert, demanded to know who was there as the tense standoff began amidst swirling red energy. Amid crackling energy, the white-haired girl, revealed as Song, captain of the Blazing Blood Detachment, stared forward, visibly startled by the sudden recognition. Suddenly, the young man recognized with alarm that he was facing a member of the Special Response Unit. As the white-haired girl aimed her weapon with tense focus, the MC anxiously realized he needed to regain control and change back before his monstrous transformation him. In the midst of swirling smoke and chaos, the white-haired girl issued a merciless order for her troops to eliminate everyone, while her soldiers responded with unwavering obedience and readiness to carry out her ruthless command. Suddenly, two armed soldiers confronted the MC at gunpoint in the tense, red-lit room, leaving him standing alert and solemn in the face of imminent danger. Faced with imminent danger, the frightened man raised his hands in surrender, hastily identifying himself as private from the patrol team and desperately shouting a warning for his allies to fire at the threat ahead. Stunned and terrified, the young man could only stammer the monster's name as he faced the towering creature looming over him. As monstrous jaws closed in and red smoke billowed, the armored soldier coldly confirmed to his team that the target had been eliminated, while the anxious MC stood defensively, surrounded and under threat. Confronting the MC with a serious expression, the white-haired girl confidently leveled her sniper rifle and demanded to know where his weapon was, putting him on the spot and leaving him visibly surprised.